Hey everyone, welcome to another live broadcast. So we are back, and today we are going to be talking about vinyl cutter comparison. So I'm going to just go over a few things as you all are starting to join. I like to keep this stuff very, very interactive. So since we're going to be going over two different vinyl cutters today, if you happen to have any questions because you haven't seen either piece of these equipment, then definitely ask any questions. I want to make sure that you guys aren't leaving here like totally confused. But we're going to be diving into the Cricut Explore Air 2, which you see here, and then also the Graphtec CE7000, which is over to my right here. And as we are going through these, we're really going to pay close attention to what each feature is included in these vinyl cutters. And as we are going through it, I want you guys to think about what is going to make the most sense for your business and where you are at currently. So if you already have a vinyl cutter, it's totally fine. We're going to be also going over tips and tricks in this. So there's still a lot to gain from this live. But if you are interested in getting into vinyl cutting, then this is going to be a really great broadcast for you to be involved with today, because we want to talk about the importance of vinyl cutters. And with all of the new innovations and the new technology that continues to come out in our industry, one thing in my mind as I've been going through different trade shows this year is we're not talking about vinyl cutters as much anymore. And I think it has a lot to do with how easy it is to just upload our artwork and get it in a transfer. Right. So my question to you guys as business owners, do you feel as though vinyl cutters have become obsolete? So I want you guys to chat your answer in the comments section, right? So whether you are joining from Facebook or if you're joining from YouTube, go ahead and chat in and tell me if you think owning a vinyl cutter is at all lucrative at this point, or do you just use transfers for everything? Okay. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. I get some mixed reviews whenever I'm face-to-face with customers at trade shows, but I want to know what some of the viewers think as well. Now, I tend to lean more towards transfers. However, I am not getting customers coming to me and saying, hey, can I get a t-shirt by tomorrow, right? So some of those one-off orders. Another thing to keep in mind why a vinyl cutter might be essential to your specific custom apparel business is all of the opportunity it can bring in addition to what you already might be doing. So if you're doing a lot of apparel for local businesses, that's going to increase word of mouth for you. So people are going to want to come to you saying, oh, okay, can I get personalization? Maybe it's a name on the back of a t-shirt, or maybe it's a monogram on a tote bag, something like that. There's going to be a lot of opportunity with vinyl cutters in that you can put things out very quickly for your customers. So we are getting some responses. Thank you guys for chiming in. So Arlene says, I believe it is lucrative, but extremely time consuming. Yes, it can be, especially when it comes to that weeding process, right? And Robin is joining us today. Awesome. So glad you were able to catch this live since you are now looking into equipment. So this is going to be a really great and informative session for you today. Janice says vinyl cutters are still needed for vehicle deco or one-of-a-kind items. Absolutely agree. If you guys are doing decals or offering any static clings, things like that. And Ben says, just finished cutting and weeding. Usually use it to see what will work and what he wants to do, or if he wants to order transfers. So that's really great. That's another really great reason to be able to test product instead of having to order transfers, because typically, I almost just fell. Typically, whenever you have to order transfers, there is a minimum, right? So if you're uploading artwork and ordering with us, we want you guys to at least order 5 pieces so that you're getting, enough for how much it's going to cost us in labor to produce that for you, right? So it eliminates the need for minimums and also testing different products. Jean says, depends on quantity and design, number of colors, etc. Absolutely. All right. So it seems like you guys are still using your vinyl cutters, whatever is going to make the most sense for your business. I love to hear it, because vinyl cutting is something I have spent a lot of my time in the industry doing, because I really like heat transfer vinyl. So as we are talking about a lot of these different innovations in the industry, such as our direct-to-film or our screen print, or even, your what's the other one? Oh, sublimation, right? There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of opportunity and options out there for ways to serve your customers best. And ultimately, it's going to boil down to price point. But one thing that is going to be extremely profitable for owning a vinyl cutter is being able to offer special effect finishes. Right? So we're able to get your basic finishes if we're ordering full color transfers or screen print transfers. And there are some special effects screen print inks out there, but they can be a little bit difficult to use. So vinyl cutters are going to be able to cut out those special effect designs and just be able to bring that in-house instead of having to pay to outsource it or ordering a transfer. Right? So I will go back to this depends on quantity and design. I think that everyone is going to reach a limit where they're like, there's just no way I am cutting out all those designs on a vinyl cutter. I'm going to order transfers, and I totally get it. But if you're between like maybe 15 to 20 designs where you're not getting too high in quantity, especially if you're doing it all yourself, then you want to make sure that you have that option as well. But there's a lot of different things that you can do with vinyl cutters, and that's what we're going to be diving into today. And we're going to compare two popular vinyl cutters, the difference between the two, and this will hopefully help you guys decide, hey, maybe I need to upgrade my vinyl cutter, or maybe I don't have one yet. How do I know which one that I should invest in? Or if you already own the best out there and you're very happy with your cutter, maybe you will learn something that you didn't know that you could do with it, right? So we are going to start with the Cricut Explore Air 2. And I actually have this already open and ready to go. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was just how easy and user-friendly this vinyl cutter is. So as we are talking about vinyl cutters and any new equipment, actually this isn't even just for vinyl cutters, any new equipment in general that you are adding to your business, there's always a learning curve. Maybe that's learning the software, maybe that's learning operation, whatever it may be, there's always going to be a learning curve. One of the things that I noticed about this vinyl cutter is just how user-friendly it is. Okay, so it's going to come with a cutting mat, and you can see that this is definitely a smaller area as far as how much of material I can put in here to cut out. That is why it comes with a cutting mat, which I would be demonstrating for you right now, but mine was so old and so bad that I need to order a new one that I'm embarrassed to actually hold it up in front of you guys. So it can be a 12 by 12, or you can go as long as 12 by 24. So if you want to cut more material at a time, you can go up to 24 inches, but you are limited to that 12 inch. Now that's okay, because there are sheets, 12-inch sheets that you can buy in vinyl, or there are even 12-inch rolls, right? So this makes it really easy to just load this up here and then sheet it off. So now I don't have to worry about cutting my sheet down and getting that accurate dimension every time, because that can be a little bit time consuming, especially if we have a lot of other jobs to get to. We don't want to be too tied up at our vinyl cutter. We want this to run very simply. Now, one of the things that makes the Cricut extremely user-friendly is its design space, right? So this has one of the nicest design spaces that I have ever worked with as a software that just comes with the purchase of your vinyl cutter. There are a variety of different artwork softwares out there that you can use, but Cricut, I mean, it's a really good one, right? So this is Cricut Design Space. So you can see I'm working on this on my iPad because this vinyl cutter is also Bluetooth. You have the capability to use Bluetooth, right? So I never actually need to have it plugged into my computer at all times, which is a really great, because if I am in another room working on my computer and this is in here cutting, I don't have to worry about having to sit next to this vinyl cutter and babysit it while I'm working on other projects on my computer. So I can do Bluetooth, or if you have a dedicated computer to just vinyl cutting, that's great too. But know that you can just use your iPad if need be, right? So the purchase of the cutter offers the software, and it's very user-friendly, like I said. So as soon as you open up, you log in, and it's going to open up the design space. And you can either go to New Project, which is this green button here, or you can go to your saved files and add all of that in here. So if I have stuff saved on my iPad because I was creating in design space before and I just saved it, it's already in there, or I can go to projects in the cloud. These are projects that I already created within Cricut Design Space, and I just saved them in here so that I can use them again in the future. Right, so let's say, for example, I want to cut out this C. Someone wants it personalized, right? So I already have it saved in there, and I can either just go straight to make it, or I can customize it, right? So I'm going to go to customize just so that you guys can see what's this? Hold on. Okay. All right. So just so that you guys can see the designer. Now, I definitely recommend going on YouTube. If you're considering Cricut, go on YouTube and watch all of the how-tos. There's thousands that you can watch people just design in there, and they walk you through all of the different, techniques and features that the design space itself has and offers, so you can see how easy it is to navigate. Now, I'm just navigating this on my iPad here. So all I have to do is just make sure that this is connected to my Cricut. And it's very simple. Anytime you connect to Bluetooth, all you do is go to your settings, and it's how you would connect anything. If you were maybe connecting AirPods to your phone, it's going to work the same way. You just go to Bluetooth. Because my Cricut is turned on, it's going to show up in my devices. So I'm going to select that. And then my power button is actually going to change to a royal blue, right? That is letting me know that it's connected to Bluetooth and I'm good to go. So I can go ahead and just send my design right to cut. Now, like I said, I'm not going to use my cutting mat. It's not even going to work at this point. It has like no tackiness to it. It needs cleaned. I need to get a new one. But all I would do is just load this right on that cutting mat and then hit my arrow button. And it's going to adjust to read the width of that material. So what it wants to do now is recognize that something has been loaded in so that I can go and send my design to cut. Now, another feature I really like about the design space is it shows cut by color. So because my C in the design space was yellow and my hearts were purple, it is going to show that I need to have those colors loaded on my cutting mat, right? So I love that it shows the cut by color. That way, if I am doing multiple colors, I know, okay, I don't have to go back and check my design. I know what color to load on the cutting mat because it's showing me right here, okay? All right, so I just tricked the machine into thinking that I just loaded in the cutting mat. So right now it's thinking that there is material in there, all right? And so then it's going to boil down to what material you actually have loaded in. And this is just going to come with learning the materials and knowing what downforce you need. So whenever we're working with vinyl cutters, what we are doing is actually sending a design to cut, right? And it is being cut out with this blade that you see there. Okay, that's even out a little bit far, but it is becoming a little bit dull. So I did increase its thickness, but normally I would want that back even a little bit more. Okay, so this is the blade, and it's going to go right into this blade holder here, and that's going to be cartridge B. Now, if there at any time I wanted to use a different maybe pen or some other type of tool in here, I'll use cartridge A, and I'll be able to tell the cutter exactly what I'm sending, okay? So sometimes people will create stencils, and they'll use markers to outline that stuff, or maybe they're doing cards and things like that. So cartridge A, you don't really need to worry about if you are just vinyl cutting. Just make sure your blade is loaded in B and you're good to go. So it's very easy. You just lock your blade right in there. Anytime that you need to change out a blade, you know, it's very simple. So it will come with additional blades, or you can purchase additional blades just to have on hand in case you are cutting maybe a lot of glitter flake, which has a lot of wear and tear on a blade because of those glitter specks. Man, they really put this thing on there. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is what the blade looks like out of its cartridge. And it does come with another additional cartridge. So if I wanted to just put that in there, I can. I'll just drop that in, right? And then I can adjust that by twisting it a bit. Okay, so keep those additional blades and blade cartridges on hand, or blade holders on hand, so that in case something were to happen with your blade, it's always good to have an extra. So I just keep those down in that little compartment. That's another great thing about the Cricut, is that it does have these little compartments where you can store things that you'll need. That way, since it's a blade, it's so small, it can get lost very easily. It'll just stay right in there. Okay. All right. So like I said, I've tricked the machine into having in a roll because I did hit my arrow key, right? So now it does believe that there is a vinyl cutter in there. We were getting to material, right? So now it's going to boil down to what material you have loaded in. And this is another reason why I think that the Cricut is so user-friendly, because it has presets on this dial here. All right, so I'm going to try to bring my laptop a little bit closer for you guys to see that dial. All right, so this is a little dial here, right? And it has materials listed all around it. Okay, so whenever I load in a material, if it's going to be glitter flake, for example, right, this is a pretty thick material. So what I'm going to need to do is load that in here, and then I'm going to need to tell the cutter what downforce I am supposed to cut this material out so that I get a nice clean cut and my weeding is very easy. Okay, so it goes from paper to iron-on to cardstock, the poster board, and everything in between. There's a lot of different presets already loaded into the vinyl cutter, right? So I have my dial turned to iron on, but if I'm cutting glitter flake, I know that it needs to be iron on plus because I need a little bit more downforce. So instead of having to go in and change everything, all I have to do is adjust that dial to iron on plus, and my preset is ready to go, right? So nothing else that I need to do. All I have to do is send my design at this point, and that is going to come right from the design space. So whether you're on your iPad or on your computer, you're just going to hit send to cut. Cricut timed out on me, so I need to go back to the canvas real quick. All right, so my C is still on there, and I'm going to click make it. And like I said, it's cut by color, so I know what colors to load on that cutting mat. Because we are doing iron-on, one of the biggest things is to remember to mirror. So we want to make sure we turn those options on. I'm going to hit next. And then it's just going to give me prompts. Again, user-friendly. It's going to walk me through basically line items that say, okay, do you have your mat loaded? Okay, did you remember to mirror based on what material you have on? It says you're on iron-on plus. Is that the correct thing? Now, these are all really, really great advantages for vinyl cutting. And honestly, in my mind, it's a no-brainer if I'm just getting started and I know that I'm just going to be doing one-off things here and there, or maybe just testing material, that I would absolutely love to have this machine. It also has a very small footprint. So even if I didn't want to leave it out on this table, it's small enough for me to be able to store under a bed, in a closet, on a shelf, whatever it might be. It's small enough to store, so I don't need to worry about that. So another really great advantage. Now, every piece of equipment is going to have something that you don't love about it, right? One of the biggest things that I don't love about the Cricut is the motor that it runs on. All right, so this is a stepper motor, which means that anytime I send a design to cut, my blade is just dragging across from left to right. It's not going forward or backwards, just left to right, and it's just dragging. It doesn't pick up. The only thing that moves is the mat and the material so that it can cut up and down as well, okay? So my pinch rollers do all of that work for me. They roll back and forth to feed the material in and out so that my vinyl cutter, or so that my blade will actually cut the design correctly. All right, so another reason I don't love this motor, and I'm just going to run this really quickly, right? It does have a fast mode, but it's still not that fast. And the sound of it is not pretty. So I'm going to just send this really quick so that you guys can see the speed and hear the sound that a stepper motor offers on the Cricut machine, okay? Okay, so we're gonna pause that because I don't want to destroy my blade or my cutting strip, okay? So if I were to send that entire job, I would probably, for a C, it's not gonna take too long, but it's definitely not going to be as fast as it could be if I were using a vinyl cutter with a servo motor, all right? So that is the biggest difference, other than size, between a Cricut and a next level vinyl cutter. All right, so before we move on to the Graphtec CE7000, I want to make sure I am not missing any questions that you guys may have on the Cricut. So I'm just going to scroll down here real quick. Thanks, Elena. Okay, let's see. All right, no questions so far. All good. If you guys do have any questions, again, just chat those in either the YouTube chat or the Facebook chat, wherever you might be joining us from today. All right, so that is the Cricut summed up. We will visit back and we'll compare what features they do have in common versus what they don't have in common. Okay. All right. So now we are going over to the Graphtec. Okay. So the Graphtec, this is, and I'm going to scoot this a little bit closer for you guys. What's nice is that it's on a stand, so I can move it around where I couldn't really move this table around. So I couldn't get the Cricut too close for you guys. So that's the first thing you're probably going to notice is the size difference and that this bad boy is going to come on a stand. And I say bad boy because this thing is bad. This is a really great vinyl cutter. All right, so I mean bad in a good way. All right, so this thing does have Bluetooth connectivity, just like the Cricut does. However, I do not have my computer or my iPad set up for that yet. All right, so I am actually going to plug this one in. It does have both options. So if I ever need to take my laptop and work elsewhere, I can do that. Okay, so the first thing is it's gonna come on a stand. There's no additional cost for that. If you do not want the stand, this is a quick little twist of a couple of screws down here, and you can lift it up and put it on a table if need be. Now, the reason that I absolutely love the stand is because there is a vinyl roll holder back here, okay? So now we don't have to worry about having 12-inch material. We can go up to 20 inches. We can do 15 inches. We can do 24 inches. If I wanted to load in a scrap piece of material, I could do that. There really are no limitations as far as size of material when it comes to this machine because it can read dimension of material the same way that the Cricut can, okay? Now, if you ever have scrap material that is so small that you want to use your cutting mat, a cutting mat, you can do that too on this. It'll read cutting mat as well. Okay, so like I said, there is a vinyl roll holder in the back of our vinyl cutter, right? So I can set that roll back here, feed out my material, and instead of it going through the front, like we do on the Cricut, it's going to feed through the back, okay? Anytime I feed in my vinyl, I'm gonna make sure that the white side or the shiny side is face down and the white is showing, right? So we're, I guess not technically white because not all the back of heat transfer vinyl or vinyl is white, but just the dull side, right? So this is the dull side. This is the shiny side. We always want the shiny side to be face down, okay? That's why we cut in a mirror image. All right, so we have that loaded in. I'm prompted on my, actually I'm not at my home. Hold on one second. Turn it off and on again. Okay, when you are loading in your material, there will be a home, right? And it's going to ask you as soon as you lock down your pinch rollers, what you just loaded in. That's how it's going to determine whether or not it's cutting a piece, a sheet, or a roll, okay? So you can see these blue strips here, right? These are indicating where my pinch rollers are safe to lock down. If I don't lock my pinch rollers down where these blue marks are, then it's not going to hold the material, okay? There's actually little grooves on this roller down here that allow the pinch rollers to grab onto the material and keep it still. That's why there's less buckling with these machines, okay? It also has a fan under here that will suction the material down so that you're not getting any skipping or things like that with your vinyl cutter. So there's two features that the Graphtec CE7000 offers already that the Cricut does not. I cannot adjust my pinch rollers with the Cricut to allot for smaller pieces or bigger pieces, and it does not have a fan to keep the material down. However, that's why this thing uses a cutting mat for everything, okay? All right, so I want to make sure I have my material lined up correctly so that when I lock these pinch rollers down, they are right on the edge of the material so that I am not losing too much material, which can cause a lot of waste, right? So if I were to line this up differently and maybe my pinch roller was over here, then I have all of this space over here between this and this where the blade isn't going to cut, right? Because the blade is only going to cut between the pinch rollers. So we want to make sure we are taking advantage of all the width of the material and making sure our pinch rollers are at the edges of our vinyl once that's loaded in. All right, I'm going to lock my pinch rollers in place by just bringing this lever up. And then right on the screen, it's going to start giving me prompts. So the same way that the Cricut kind of walks you through the process, the Graphtec is going to do the same thing. So while there is a little bit more of a learning curve with this machine, you're still able to, find some user friendliness in it, right? So I loaded it in and now it's saying, okay, select 1, 2, or 3. 1 is going to say roll front edge. 2 is going to say roll to current position. And 3 is going to say sheet. So if I was doing a small scrap, I would select sheet and then it would just read the dimensions of that sheet to make sure I know I have the right amount for whatever design I'm going to send to cut. All right, so I want to choose roll 1 front edge. Okay, the reason I want to do that is because whenever I loaded this in, there's so much material down here. So if I were to select 2 and it goes to its current position, it's going to start cutting right here, not down here. Okay, so it's going to feed that material back and go right to that front edge. Right, so now you just saw it read the width of the material. It fed the material back. And now it wants to start cutting here, okay? Now, even though that feature exists, we still need to remind the blade when we send the design to cut that that's where we want it to cut, okay? But before I do anything, what I want to do is do a test cut. I want to make sure my downforce is accurate, the same way that we did with the dial over here. I want to make sure my speed is where I want it to be and that my offset is correct. Now, these are all things that are instructions given to you whenever you order your vinyl material. So it's going to take out all the guesswork for you. Whenever you order that roll of heat transfer vinyl or vinyl, it's going to say, okay, this is the type of blade you need. This is the speed we recommend you being at, and this is the downforce you need with that blade, okay? So the same way that the Cricut has a blade holder and blade that you can adjust, this is going to do the same thing, okay? Right, so that's the blade holder looks. You can barely see that blade sticking out, maybe a little bit. There it is. All right, so it's going to have a little blade, a holder cartridge here. You're going to let that go in there completely flush up against the base of that. And then you're just screwing that to lock it in nice and tight. All right, now we are going to do our test cut to make sure our force and everything is correct. Now I can already see here that my speed is at 8, my force is at 20, okay? I already know that because I loaded in a roll of, I believe this is Glow heat transfer vinyl, that this is definitely too high of a force because Glow is very thin. So we're working out about 80 microns thickness of this material. So we need to go ahead and dial that force back before I send my test cut. The reason is because if I know the force is already too high, I don't want it puncturing through that material and causing damage to my blade and to my cutting strip, okay? Vinyl cutters are very low maintenance when it comes to the type of equipment that exists out there. This is pretty low maintenance. The only thing I ever need to keep an eye on is my blade and my cutting strip, okay? So there's a cutting strip here where the blade is going to cut at all times, the same way that the Cricut cuts across at all times. And if I were to damage that, that can cause skipping and not getting clean cuts with my designs. Okay, so I want to go to condition/test so that I can adjust my force. Now, if I was going to be in Cricut Design Space, just do a little bit of a comparison for you. If I needed to adjust my force, that would be all on the computer, not at the machine, okay? So you would need to be in Cricut Design Space for that. I'm gonna start at 12, okay? And to adjust that, I'm just gonna hit enter. And then it's going to say cut test, hit either the right or the left arrow. So I'm gonna do that. It's gonna ask me what exactly I want to test. It'll say number 1 for force. So I'm gonna select 1. And it is going to send 3 things. It's a square with a triangle inside. And I'm actually gonna sheet this off so that you guys can actually see the test cuts a little bit better. Another thing I like about this is it has a little groove here for you to run an X-Acto knife through so that you get a nice clean cut every time, which helps reduce waste. All right, so I'm just gonna run that X-Acto knife through there. It'll sheet off that test cut for me. And you'll see maybe if the light hits it right, you guys, some of you guys know how hard it is to see cut lines. But as I roll that a little bit, I'm sure you can see those test cuts in there a little bit. So what it's going to do is it's going to cut 3 of these. So it's a square with a triangle in there. And you can see that that's fairly small so that it's testing just how well we're cutting detail. Right? So the first one is actually going to be the lower downforce. All right, so the middle is what you set it at, and we set it at 12. So the one I just weeded was my downforce at 11. The next one I'm going to weed is my downforce at 12, which we did fine. And then I'm going to weed the other one, which is downforce at 13. Okay, so it's showing me, okay, here's how it turned out based off of these 3 different forces. That way, you know, okay, maybe I'm feeling a little bit of scoring through the higher one and I need to dial it back. We're good. I got a good weed on all 3. None of them feel bad. Nothing picked up as I was weeding it away. So I know I'm good to send my design. All right, so we are going to press the enter key. And we are going to hit escape to cancel. And we're going to go back to our main menu. And because I sheeted that off, it just fell off the back. Okay, so I'm glad. I'm not glad that happened, but at the same time, it's not a bad thing that it happened, because if you guys, if this were to happen with you, you at least know that it's normal, and the only thing that you did wrong was sheet off that material where we already told the vinyl cutter, hey, that material is there. So it just kept feeding it back to its original start point. And because I sheeted off its start point, it rolled it back all the way, okay? So that is, in my opinion, one of the downfalls of the machine. I wish that didn't happen, but normally I wouldn't sheet that off. I would just do my test cut right here, because now I've missed the opportunity to use all this material over here as material to cut instead of waste, okay? So that can happen, totally normal, but that's why it happened. All right, so I'm just gonna go through that whole thing. I'm letting the vinyl cutter know it's a roll, it's reading those dimensions, feeding that back. All right, one more time. I didn't load it in right. Okay, so this is great, guys. I love when this happens. Vin said, been there, done that more than once. Good, I'm glad I am not alone. All right, so we have that loaded back in. The reason that it didn't work the first time is because I didn't have the material completely under this blade holder, or not blade holder, pinch roller. Okay, so we know our downforce is good. Now I want to send my design to cut. Now, this vinyl cutter also comes with its own software. The same way that Cricut offers Cricut Design Space, this is going to offer Graphtec Studio, really great software. However, I actually don't really use either of those softwares because I prefer CADWorks Live or Stahl's Vinyl Designer. Okay, so those are all resources that we as stalls offer you guys so that you have access to free fonts, free clip art, free templates for you to go in and do your own artwork, especially if you're newer to artwork or maybe you don't have any background in Corel Draw or Adobe Illustrator. Then you can just use these resources to quickly make your own designs so that you can vinyl cut yourself. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys so you can see what I'm working with here. So this is the design, and I'm in CADWorks Live here, and what I did was export it to Vector Cut. All right, so Vector Cut is the software that actually takes my design from my free online artwork software, CADWorks, and it's going to send it to the vinyl cutter. So I actually don't need to use the software that comes with the vinyl cutter. With Cricut, you can only use Cricut Design Space to cut on that vinyl cutter, okay? So keep that in mind. Between the two, you're not going to be able to use Vector Cut. You're going to have to always take your design and upload it into Cricut Design Space, okay? So this is the design here. We're going to adjust the dimensions. I'll just do 5 inches in width. That's going to size that down for me. And then I want to make sure it's cutting the edge of the material where my blade is over here. So I'm going to go to Origin, select Auto Origin. I already have my design mirrored, but if I didn't mirror it beforehand, I can just hit mirror up here and it'll do that for me. Another thing it's doing is showing you your material. So if I zoom in here, it's showing me, okay, where the blue is my design area where I can send designs to cut, and it's showing you your material width as a whole. Where you see that happening at is all over here. So you see material size is set to 20, and then I did margin offset to 19 to make up for where those pinch rollers are, right? So I would say they're not taking up more than an inch together, right? So I allotted for that in the width. That way, if I was going to cut multiples of these, I could cut multiples and it'll automatically gang those up so that I don't have to duplicate and position those on my material, right? So this is going to do all that for you. Now, the same thing, and I'm going to show you this by showing you another design as well. The same thing that let's say it's this one, for example. We're going to change this to just a basic color. Okay, so I'm going to send this to Vector Cut, show you how quick it is. Right? The same way that Cricut Design Space offers cut by color, so does this. All you have to do is select the color that you have loaded into your vinyl cutter, and then you just send it to cut from there, right? So this does offer cut by color as well if you are doing more than a couple designs at once. All right. So I'm going to hit undo because I don't need multiples for this demonstration, but now all I have to do is hit send cut job. And when I do that, I want to, sorry, I lost you guys for a second. When I do that, I want to make sure that I have the vinyl cutter in view so that you guys can see what it's going to do from here. So I'm going to hit Origin. That Origin button, I want to get in the habit of always hitting that before I send my design to cut, because it's going to tell the blade, hey, I want you to start right here. That way I'm not losing any material to waste. Now on my screen, I'm just going to hit send cut job, and it's just going to send it right over. Right, so keep in mind, my speed is only at 8. This speed can actually go up to 30, right? So you can see how quickly this is cutting this out just at 8. So if you wanted to output really, really fast, the amounts that it can do in so many seconds is absolutely crazy. So if you're used to working with stepper motor cutters and you get one of these, you're going to be mind blown when you see how fast these things can go. So we're actually going to cut that one more time. So I'm just going to go over and reset my origin. But before I do that, I'm going to increase my speed because I want you guys to see how quick this can actually cut. So I'm going to go back to that condition and test menu, and I'm going to go to 3. And yeah, I can go up to actually, let's see how high it can go up. Okay, it goes up to 64, right? Not 30, right? So I'm not going to do 64 because I'm working with a lot of material and it's a decent sized design. So if I go too fast and that blade is moving too quick for a large design, it can start to buckle the material, right? So high speed works for certain things. If you're working with really thin, lightweight material and it's a decent sized design, just be careful with the speed. If you go too high, it can start to buckle and then you will not get a clean cut. All right, but I am going to adjust that to, all right, so we were at 8. Let's do 25 and see how that does. All right, so I'm going to hit enter. And just for precaution, I'm going to hit that origin one more time, and then I'm going to send it to cut, and you guys can see how quickly this will cut. I mean, pretty crazy in my opinion. All right, so we'll just feed this out. One of the other features I want you guys to keep in mind about this machine is you guys were watching me stand here, look at it. However, if I was cutting 20 of these designs at once, I would not need to sit here and babysit it. This thing can actually track up to 14 feet of material. So I can just feed all of this out. And while I'm doing this, it is already reading my cut area for me. So if I want to keep just tracking this out, I can do that with no issue. And it'll just keep going, right? So I don't have that much material left on this roll back here. But if I wanted to keep going and tracking all that material to make sure all my designs are going to fit up on whatever material that I have loaded in here, I can do that. All right. So we'll just feed that back. And again, we will just use our blade here, our knife, to slice that off. And my designs are ready to go. So one thing about both of these cutters is that they are capable of cutting out really nice designs. So the quality of the cut is really good. You're just going to be able to do a lot more with this vinyl cutter as far as speed goes and also detail. All right, so one thing that this machine offers is a really spiffy word called tangential emulation. Okay, so it sounds weird. I'm going to put it in the chat section so you guys can see what I'm talking about. If you guys look that up, it'll explain. The best way that I can put it is that this blade can actually pick up and turn, right? So whenever we talked about Cricut, we discussed how it'll just go back and forth and the material, the blade just drags across the material, right? So whenever that's happening, that is risking skipping, okay? So whenever I'm working with super fine detail, or maybe I'm working with a material that has a lot of stretch in it, it is going to cause skipping. That's just the nature of vinyl cutters that run on a stepper motor, okay? So this is our design all weeded out. You can say we have nice clean cuts here. And that feature that I just said, tangential emulation, that is going to allow us to get very fine detail and be able to even cut designs that are for rhinestones. So if you guys are making your own rhinestone templates, maybe you guys are doing dancing, cheerleading stuff, those girls love that, right? So if you're making your own rhinestone templates, this is going to have that. It is also going to have a feature called overcut. This is something the Cricut, I don't think it has. You guys are more than welcome to correct me if I'm wrong. I never even looked for it because I've never had to use it, but it also has an overcut feature, the Graphtec, that allows the blade to overlap its starting point and end point, which is going to create an even cleaner cut, especially if you guys are doing those rhinestone templates that get those tiny little circles. And if that start point and end point don't meet or overlap, it's going to pick up the rest of the material when you go to weed. All right, so this is another great way to make the weeding process a lot easier. Even if you're doing fine detail, it doesn't have to just be used for rhinestone templates. So keep that in mind. But there are a lot of really great features. And in my opinion, this is still a really great user-friendly vinyl cutter. This one does have the presets all ready to go. However, you can set up to 8 presets in this vinyl cutter as well, right? So this one says condition number 1. If I wanted to go into my software and name that to CAD-CUT Ultra Weed and have its presets all in there, I can cue that all in and my presets will be saved, okay? So you can add your own presets. They're all customizable. You can make them whatever you want. These are going to be the set presets that Cricut suggests for you guys to use. All right. So let's see here. We have a question. Does the CE7000 do perforated cuts? If so, what's the speed and motor type? The speed, I think you mean perforated. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yes, you can do perforated cuts. Of course, you want to make sure you do have a backing that is going to allow it to do the perforated cut without damaging your cutting strip. The speed can go up to 64, and it works on a servo motor. So you'll be able to do that just fine. Just make sure you have that backing just to avoid wear and tear. All right. So it looks like there weren't any other questions that came in. This comment from Michael: I would love a servo cutter, but don't have the bandwidth to learn another design software. So like I said, if you know how to use one design software like Cricut, one of the basic ones, then this one's super easy to use. That's why I use just CADWorks for everything, or the Stahls Vinyl Designer, so that I don't have to learn new software. I can just adjust that for wherever I need, whatever I need to do. And then of course, if you guys are using Adobe or Corel, that is compatible with the Graphtec in addition to the software that it comes with. Okay. All right. So as far as setup goes, very easy. If you ever set up a printer on your computer, it's good. Take it out of the box. It's plug and play for the most part. All you have to do is put that blade in there. It comes ready to run. There's no like tech things that you need to do. And of course, we have a huge support system behind Graphtec, right? So we know Cricut has a good support system too, but they're handling that. But if you guys do need support on the Graphtec, we have a tech team dedicated to helping with those questions or just getting started, right? So that completes this week's live broadcast. I do have an announcement real quick before we go. Be sure to join us in 2 weeks' time. So 2 weeks from now, Kelly Walters is going to be going live with one of our influencers, Brandy. If you haven't seen her videos that she's done with a lot of our products, she's a real customer. She gets real orders, and basically she just comes on our channel and talks to you guys about what products she's using for those real life orders. So we talk a lot about, if you guys get an order, but she's actually in it, right? It's like she's getting with those customers and working with our products. So she's going to be live with Kelly. So be sure to stay tuned for that. More information coming, but it is going to be 2 weeks from now, same day, same time. So definitely check it out. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to comment that in. We will be sure to get those questions answered post-broadcast. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'll see you next time.